Do you ever revisit a game that you haven't played in many years, and when you do, you just realise, I'm home? Hello there, welcome to saberduelgaming, where we always take the high ground, and welcome to our retro review of Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now again, as I covered with my retro review of GTA 3, let me get this off my chest right from the start. This retro review is for GTA Vice City on the PlayStation 2, but the footage you're going to see on the screen is for the definitive edition of the GTA trilogy, and I'm effectively reviewing both at the same time. Again, like I stated with the GTA 3 one, whilst there are differences to the graphics which I do think improve it, the actual gameplay remains the same. So on the whole, consider this a review for both games. Released 1 year after GTA 3, Vice City had a lot to live up to. GTA 3 had been a revelation and a massive leap forward from the earlier games in the franchise, and in many ways a massive leap forward from most other games. It was going to be really hard to improve upon. After all, it had to stick to effectively the same gameplay, and whilst it was going to have its own original story and characters, it would need to do something rather spectacular to make it stand out as different from the original GTA 3, and boy did it do just that. Whilst most games would normally focus so much on trying to take steps forward, GTA Vice City did the exact opposite, not in gameplay or graphical content, no, in the actual time period it was set. GTA 3 had been set in effectively modern times, but GTA Vice City went back to the 80s, borrowing heavily from a variety of 80s films and TV shows, none more so than Miami Vice. The game had a far brighter and more polished look than GTA 3. GTA 3 was dark and grimy, leather jackets and jeans, rain, and generally a look that gave you a feeling of oppression. Vice City was vibrant, neon pinks and blues, bright suits and Hawaiian shirts. The game stood out and had a very unique look and feel because of it. However, this didn't make the game feel too cheesy. As you work your way around the map, there are some areas that are posh and colourful and make you feel like you're in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but other areas are far more grimy, gritty and gang-ridden, giving a wide range of cultures all within this one city. Gameplay-wise, it kept pretty much everything that you would have found in GTA 3. If you liked doing the police missions or the taxi missions, these were still there. The only thing that was missing from Liberty City in Vice City was the train that allowed you to travel around. Instead, you had to make your own way. However, there were a whole host of additional options in how to get around the city. As well as being able to steal cars, you were also able to use bikes for the first time in the franchise, and they were incredibly fun. You could also use boats, planes, helicopters. It was all there for the taking. Unlike GTA 3, in which our main character Claude remained silent throughout the entire game, Tommy Vercetti, our character in Vice City, was more than happy to speak, and this really enabled us to feel far more connected to the storyline. The game starts with Tommy Vercetti being released after 15 years in prison in Liberty City, a nice nod to GTA 3, even though we don't actually see much of it. He's very quickly brought back into the criminal underworld and is involved in something that, well, let's just say doesn't quite go according to plan. And now he's got to work his way around all the different gangs and drug leaders throughout Vice City, doing missions for different people. And while some of these are optional, a lot of them tell the story itself, so I won't go too much into them, I don't want to give it all away. Needless to say, the story is fantastically fun, it's engaging, it's riveting, there's a fair few twists and turns, and there's far more relatable and likeable characters than we saw in GTA 3, at least in my opinion. And there's also quite a few characters who you are just waiting to shoot the head right off, and don't worry, in most cases that's exactly what's going to happen. As with GTA 3, the game introduces a fantastic soundtrack, and Vice City's soundtrack, listened to usually over the radio stations that you listen to it in the car, is incredible. The 80s music from within this game is an absolute must listen. In fact, the game's soundtrack was released on a multiple CD set and was even released on iPad as an app. Yeah, you can literally download an app where it's just you listening to the radio in Vice City. That's how successful this game's soundtrack was. So with everything I've said so far, that being nothing but praise, and be clear, there's a lot more of that to come, how was this game received when it was first released? On its release in 2002, the game garnered universal acclaim. Almost everyone had positive things to say about it. The lowest score I was able to find was 8 out of 10, which is not a bad score in itself at all. However, the majority of scores ranged between 95 to 100% or equivalent. Most reviewers commented that the missions were far more engaging and enjoyable than those in GTA 3, and especially that the game had a much more engaging and immersive story. It truly felt like you were part of a world where this ongoing narrative was taking place. Critics were also very complimentary of the character of Tommy. In contrast to the voiceless Claude, Tommy was voiced by the late Ray Liotta, a fantastic actor who really brought this character to life. The sheer scope of the game also garnered praise, with Game Revolution's Ben Silverman describing the depth of the game as unparalleled. Unsurprisingly, the game's soundtrack also garnered an incredible amount of praise. I can't really imagine how anyone could have anything negative to say about any song in this game. But what about the bottom line? How successful was the game? Well, within 24 hours, the game had already sold 500,000 copies. That's damn impressive. By July 2006, it had sold 7 million copies in the United States alone. This game was a massive success. The game also won the Ultimate Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards, as well as winning IGN awards for gameplay, graphics, and sound. However, unfortunately, you can't talk about a GTA game without mentioning the controversy that sometimes inevitably follows them, and Vice City was certainly no different on that account. As was often the case back around this time, politicians and focus groups were very keen to blame everything that happened in the world that linked to violent crime, drug use or sex on the GTA games. This was par for the course. However, whilst I'm not going to go into any great detail, I do think that this is very disingenuous. First of all, this game was an 18 plus, so no one under the age of 18 should have been playing it anyway. If you allowed someone under 18 to play it, that's on you, not them. Also, whilst often people will cite music, movies, and of course games as the reason for violent crime, we had violent crime a long time before we ever had video games, movies, or music for that matter. So quite frankly, I just consider it people trying to use video games as a scapegoat, and I'm not going to give it any more time in this review. Vice City is not to blame for what happens in the real world. With that all put to one side, how does this game stand up to modern scrutiny, both the original PS2 version and the definitive edition for the PS4? Well, very quickly, I'm going to touch on the PS4's definitive edition. While some people were slightly critical of the update to the graphics, because I know people with PCs have been able to do mods that looked even better. Good for you, I don't care. From my opinion, the graphics were an improvement, but even if they hadn't been, I wouldn't care. The graphical improvement is nice, it's brilliant, lovely, fine, but it makes no difference to the gameplay. The game would be just as much fun if they'd made no changes to the graphics. If they had just released the definitive edition with those 3 games on, I would be playing Vice City just as much regardless. So, fantastic for the definitive edition, but let's focus on GTA Vice City itself. I'm going to get the negatives out the way early on because quite frankly, there isn't many of them. The one negative that I would throw out there is that with a few missions, there are issues with controls. little fiddly bits of controls that just make the mission far more difficult than it needs to be. Not difficult because the game is trying to challenge you, but because the controls make it difficult. This usually fits around having to drive a car really fast and struggling with turns and controls of the car, or trying to shoot things that are just really difficult to hit. The controls don't always lend themselves to the game perfectly. However, that is very much a nitpick, and that's pretty much all I have to say negatively. Visually, this game is incredible, and the graphics, even without the definitive edition, would still stand up wonderfully for me today. It's bright, it's vivid, it's colourful, and just driving down by the beach here is just an incredible experience. The soundtrack is still the greatest soundtrack in any video game to date, and it isn't even close. The story of the game has still not been matched, not by any of the GTA games, and probably not by many other games in total. The character is fantastically fun to play, the game is just totally immersive and enjoyable, and whether you want to actually attempt the quests, side quests, doing random silly stuff, or just drive around soaking in the atmosphere, you can lose hours and hours into this game, and still enjoy every minute of it. The ability to buy property was a fantastic addition in this game, and as soon as I went back to playing it, El Swanko Plaza was the first place I bought. I just loved that place. There was far more variety with the weapons, and I just love using the katana. Sorry if that makes me sound like a maniac. Quite frankly, this game is as much fun to play now as it was when it was released. And I personally still find Grand Theft Auto Vice City to be better than any other GTA game we've had ever since. And the fact that GTA 6 is going back to Vice City kinda tells you all you need to know. This game has a legacy. The fact that this game was set back in the 80s gave it a unique feel that none of the other GTA games has ever had. This is probably my favourite GTA game ever, and I'm gonna say this, would probably be on my top 10 games of all time. The game is still fun to play, fantastically engaging, the story is compelling, the characters are fantastic. I just don't think enough praise can be given to this game. Yes, some of the controls at times can be fiddly, but you just don't care. It's too much fun. During your life, there are some games that you play and may remember fondly, and there are others that become an integral part of your life, almost bookmarks of key elements during your development. And for me, Grand Theft Auto Vice City was certainly one of those, but going back to it again, you're never sure whether you're going to enjoy it quite as much, but for me, I did in spades. GTA Vice City, both the original on the PS2 and that part of the definitive edition on the PS4, easily deserves a score of 9 out of 10. This game is still an absolute masterpiece and a must-play for all gamers. But what about you? What's your favourite GTA game of all time? Comment below, let me know. And until next time, take the high ground.